someone later made the mistake of saying to Sylvester in a club where It's Raining Men was playing, "They got you outdone." Why would they even say that to him? Why would that? Bitches, I can't stand people. People mouths be deserving to get smacked sometimes. I just swear. His next album, released in 1980, Sell My Soul. The whole premise of the album was, I'll never sell my soul. Now, in regards to him switching up his image to a more masculine persona, it wasn't far-fetched. Because remember, Sylvester was the guy who would maybe have on lip gloss and eyeshadow and wear boy clothes. I mean, it's the cutest thing ever. Like, I love that look, to be feminine yet dominant at the same time. Before Sylvester started recording it, he said he planned to experiment with rock and new wave. He's trying to reinvent himself. Okay, which from time to time you have to do. Like, it's very hard for some people to remain who they are here on YouTube and maintain stability and success here. The only person that I would say here who has not varied at all from their original that I can think of is Forest Rocks. And basically that entire graduation class that surrounded Forest Rocks. They came in, stayed them the entire time, and kept moving. For the cover of Sell My Soul, Sylvester arranged for a photo session with a gay photographer. He brought into the record company photographs of spurting champagne bottles, foam shooting all over his face, running out of his mouth and down his shirt. These were to be the cover photos, he insisted. But to this day, says Phil Carroll, I'd say the world is not ready for most of those pictures, including the ones he picked as his first choices. One thing I will say about Virgos, as brilliant as you all are, your biggest Achilles heel will always be doing way too much. That shit gonna get y'all murk one day. Jamie Putman found them grotesque. I mean, where has the world? I told you the world has gone to shit. You know, because I don't know when he wrote this book. I think it was around 2003 that Gamson wrote this book. But baby, I mean, things like that happen all the time. It's all over the internet. It is all over Cat Williams' internet of all kinds of nasty freaky shit. It's very insinuative. Okay, you got champagne bottles popping everywhere with the foams hitting him all in his face and on his chest. And I mean, come on now. It's a bit over the top. Terry Hint, who had just taken over as fantasy publicist director, told him there was no way to put those pictures on an album cover and take it to a black music station. Phil Jones, then vice president of promotion and marketing, agreed. Okay, but hold on. Didn't they have an album cover where a lady was butt naked with honey all over her body? Okay, so that the world was ready for it. They ready for that. They can do that, you know, back then. Actually, they weren't, because that was almost like porn to some people. But whether it is heterosexual or homosexual, I would still be like, that's just too much. It's too much now, but it was definitely too much then. Jones had spent years at Motown and was on the front lines with radio programmers. We're not going to put that out, he said. It's suicide. Word. They already just destroyed disco because of its homosexual, I'm doing air quotes, y'all, undertones. I had no idea that disco the part of the reason why disco sucked was because of homosexuality. I just thought it was because the powers that be was jealous of the people of color making the money. But like I said, you learn something new every day. Like Sell My Soul, Sylvester's final album for Fantasy, Too Hot to Sleep, was recorded without the tongues, with Sylvester's cautious consent. Harvey Fuqua had produced their 1980 album, 2 Tons of Fun. It did well with club hits like Earth Can Be Just Like Heaven and I Got the Feeling. Patrick Crowley, whom Sylvester had fired on the grounds that synthesizers were outdated, played synthesizers on the road. Harvey started to get calls for the 2 Tons as a solo act. That same year, they recorded a second album, Back at Ya. As soon as their management contract was up, they were going to go their own way. Izora and Martha told Sylvester and Jeannie Tracy. Jeannie cried and Sylvester pleaded with them to stay, upset that they were abandoning him while he was still with Fantasy, where he no longer wished to be. He'd always featured the girls up front with him, even giving them a solo spot at a big show in Madison Square Gardens. But now they were really stepping out. He cried and tried to get us to stay, says Izora, but management had fucked that up completely. The only problem we had was management. Neither she nor Martha cares to elaborate. They still sometimes performed with him, but in 1981, the years of Too Hot to Sleep, Martha and Izora officially left Sylvester's act. The management, Sylvester sniffed vengefully to a Black Stars interview in 1981, took them away and forced them into this solo career. I don't feel they ready for that shade. That one sentence is very telling. It's showing how Sylvester is very selfish in that interview. I don't feel that they're ready for. He's not even understanding that he's undermining himself by saying that. As long as they've been with you, you don't feel like you have properly prepared them for the business. Although he may feel that it's shading the girls, it's actually shading him. Telling me that you feel like the girls aren't capable. Like if they get out in the business, going to chew them up and spit them out. But no, that's not the case. They did very well as the Weather Girls. Sylvester, your slip is showing. I always felt like Sylvester was salty at them for leaving him. And now that I'm reading why the girls left and why Sylvester had felt abandoned, it's purely just because Sylvester was angry with them for leaving him. How dare you leave me here? And you know I don't want to be here. I can't stand these motherfuckers neither, but I'm stuck. Don't leave me. The girls had their out and they took it. And I believe that, like the book says, even though the girls would come back and sing with Sylvester sometimes, I believe management were assholes to them. Fuck you, bitch. Fuck you. You don't want to be here, don't be here. They seemed ready, though. NBC's Real People showed Izora and Martha singing, eating, and chatting. Ebony profiled them with 2 pages of the Tons performing Getting Made Up, sitting around Martha's parents' house playing pinball and bowling. Pause. I remember seeing I don't know if it was a documentary or not. What I didn't agree with is why the hell do they focus on these girls eating? Boy, did they love them some fried chicken. That's not cool to me. That's not cool to me. Like, that is not what is part of their makeup. I mean, eating is part of their makeup because they're big girls, but don't do that. When they were informed that an Oklahoma gospel act had been registered with ASCAP since 1958 As 2 tons of fun, they changed their name to the Weather Girls. On their next album, 1983's success on Sony, the Weather Girls would pronounce "It's Raining Men." A lot of people, especially gay men, were excited to hear that men who were tall, blonde, and dark, mean, rough, tough, strong, and lean were falling from the sky. The song took off, and the Weather Girls with it. Oh, Sylvester, someone later made the mistake of saying to Sylvester in a club where It's Raining Men was playing, "They got you outdone." Why would they even say that to him? Why would that? Bitches, I can't stand people. People mouths be deserving to get smacked sometimes. I just swear. On Too Hot to Sleep, Sylvester changed things up again. On the liner notes, he announced that since he, Jeannie Tracy, and his new background singer, Maurice Mo Long, all grew up in the Church of God in Christ, they now be calling themselves the Kojic Singers. Okay, that's a little weird. In December 1979, Black Stars magazine had featured Sylvester along with model The Beverly Johnson and singers Frida Payne, Teddy Pendergrass, and Valerie Ashford and Nick Simpson in a goopy feature on what the stars wanted for Christmas. "All I want for Christmas is to be left alone with someone I love," Sylvester said. In 1981, Sylvester met Michael Rayner, an attractive, skinny, insecure, depressed brunette. Michael grew up in Deep River, Connecticut, population 3,000. He quit college at age 20 and then got in his car one morning and drove to San Francisco, where he got a job at a heterosexual fern bar in the financial district. Sylvester visited the bar from time to time, and he and Michael would quietly make eyes at each other. In 1981, when they met at a party, Michael was attracted to Sylvester's smile, deep laugh, and manliness. There was definitely a strong female side to him, Michael says, but even if he had the big wig and all the makeup, I still saw a man there. Sylvester asked Michael to the opera. After that first night, Sylvester began planning a trip for them to Hawaii. In San Francisco, though, Michael and Sylvester didn't officially live together. They spent most of their time at Sylvester's 3-story place on Corbett Avenue, which John Maley had shared until a few months before. The sex was great, but out of bed, Michael and Sylvester became more like brothers. It was a lot for me just that someone loved me, and I felt so lucky that I returned it, Michael said. Michael had grown into himself enough to recognize that he was not in love and that he could not be what Sylvester wanted, and he told Sylvester so. They all said disco died. Sylvester said in 1980, "But I don't know. I go out dancing all the time." He had a point. People didn't just stop dancing in the 1980s, especially not black people and gay people, and especially not gay men in San Francisco. So let me piggyback off of what he's saying. I don't believe that disco truly died. I believe that it kind of faded away, because I remembered in the early 1980s when there was still remnants of disco going around, especially on the Soul Train. I mean, I clearly remember disco hits maybe till like 1983, maybe pushing into 1984. I'm going to say definitely when hip hop came in, that's when disco, I would say, was like stopped. Right about the same time when hip hop came in. You know, we can't control 2 genres. Okay, maybe we can control 1, but not 2. And remember when they said hip hop would die? That's funny. That's funny. To think about hip hop, fading out the way they allowed R&B to fade out. Now they never said R&B would go anywhere, but that shit is on its last leg. Forgive me for saying it. But baby, it's still limping around. Basically, what the book says is that although disco was not really on the charts, when you went out to the clubs in San Francisco, it was very prevalent. Sylvester could still make his money singing in San Francisco. The gays are very loyal to their dying day. I don't believe Sylvester really quite understood what was happening at the time, because he was still able to make money singing at local gigs, and from time to time in other places. After most of the major record companies had dropped their disco department, it became a lot harder for DJs to find the kind of records people wanted to dance to. In San Francisco, some of those DJs had just up and formed their own record companies. They didn't have thousands of dollars to plunk down for a symphony orchestra, so out of necessity, they relied heavily on synthesizers, which turned out to suit clubgoers just as well. Marty Bleckman, who had been a DJ and mixed records for Fantasy, founded Megatone Records with Patrick Crowley. And we know that eventually Sylvester started working with Megatone. Sylvester wrote lyrics and Patrick Crowley wrote music. And they made a record for about $500. The song they made, Do You Wanna Funk, is a traditional Sylvester Patrick song. Sylvester's gospel falsetto floated over cowbells and Patrick's San Francisco gay boy synthesizers. The lyrical come on made clear the equation of funking and funking. Patrick did the hand claps. You could imagine people gyrating up to each other singing, Do you wanna funk? Let me show you how. Do you wanna funk with me? It was a question with no question mark. When Do You Wanna Funk was released on the 4th of July, 1982, it looked as if Sylvester was rising again. The song went to the top of the dance charts, crossed over the pop charts in many countries, and the next year was featured on a Jane Fonda workout tape and the soundtrack of Eddie Murphy's Trading Places, even though Sylvester complained that Murphy was crass. You say what? Murphy is crass? Go, 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 fat, go. I know a girl whose butt hang low. She's flabby. Flabby, flabby, flabby. She's flabby. Flabby, flabby, flabby. She step on your foot and mash your toe. From quite early on, several of Sylvester's band members had also suspected that they were not getting their financial due from Honey Productions. For one thing, even when they were touring with a hit album, Mark Barnum says, the money was always just okay. When James Warwick got his start with them at 19 years old, he says, Ted Rosenblatt, the attorneys represented Harvey Fuqua, Nancy Pitts, and Honey Productions, had told him, we're going to take care of your publishing. Warwick had happily agreed and felt rich getting checks for a few $100s. But when Mighty Real went gold and he was not seeing much more money than before, he was savvy enough to poke around. In 1978, Warwick, Michael Findon, and Patrick Crowley hired a lawyer, Gerald Weiner, to see if they were being properly paid for songs they had written. The answer is frigging no. So you know that a suit ensued for several years, as long as his own pockets were lined. Sylvester had not been concerned about contracts or percentages. If you put something in front of him and told him to sign it, he'd sign it, says Weiner, the attorney. He didn't care to read it or have it explained to him. If he had money in his pocket, he was happy. Pause. That is always the gimme gotcha. Because of the fact that you're having hits, there's money coming in. And it's always cheaper for the artist to go to the company and say, hey, I want a new car. You want a new car? That's all you want, girl? What car you want? I want a Bentley. Oh, a Bentley? Oh, girl, that ain't shit. They driving around in a car. They don't even know that the car is still in the company's name. They don't even understand. You done made these people $5 million friggin' dollars, and they just gave you $100,000 or $250,000 car to shut you the fuck up. Here, girl, here go your car. Go away. As long as Sylvester was able to say, this is what I want, and they give it to him, he was good. Not even understanding, baby, what you're asking for is pennies in comparison to the amount of money that you have made in company. What do I always say to y'all? It's never a problem until it's a problem. When that money stopped coming in, oh, Negro, it's a problem. Eventually, though, Sylvester too turned to Weiner and filed a lawsuit against Harvey Fuqua et al. In November 1982. Nancy Pitts suggested that he did so because he was under the influence of a lot of people in the background, friends, and what have you, the San Francisco crowd. She speaks of outside sources who wanted a piece of the pie. What pie? Y'all ain't making no money? Sylvester ain't had a hit in fucking years. And the last one he had, I mean, how long you think y'all gonna be able to eat off Do You Want a Phone? You know, Sylvester sued. Oh, and he won like a okay, now he was supposed to get like some millions, but Nancy and Harvey gave him about $20,000 a piece, and he got all his publishing, girl. Whatever Sylvester's motivations, Weiner did not have too difficult a time finding evidence that Fuqua and Pitts owed Sylvester money. I don't think they even bothered to account, he says. They just gave him some money, never accounted it. It was all just one big candy jar. Sylvester sued. Nobody ever stole a dime from Sylvester, says Nancy Pitts. Sylvester loved to live a lavish life. True, but if you was to put him on a payroll and allow him to spend his own money, then he wouldn't be coming to the company and say, hey, give me this, give me that. Just give him his money. And when he don't have no more, make his ass go to work. And then as far as I'm concerned, you only in charge of the record sales. He should be out there making his own money with the touring. The touring part should be your money. Well, at least that's what the new edition said. Megatone was hardly a major label. And on one level, Sylvester was taking what was available, retreating and retrenching after Fantasy with no hits in a few years and the stale scent of disco lingering around him. He was not all that interesting to major record labels.